Hey everyone, Robot here. In this video we'll go over all you need to know to play the Hawkins National Laboratory map effectively and efficiently as Survivor. We'll cover how to find your way around the map, how to find gens easily, how to find the exit gates, and the strongest tiles to loot. Let's get started. First, let's talk about how to find your way around the map. As we did with Leary's, let's first take a look at the simplified layout. We have the portal room, the control room, top mid, bottom, and upstairs. The top part of the map can be recognized by the portal room, which is the entrance to the Upside Down in Stranger Things. Right below it is the control room, easily recognizable as well. Similar to Leary's, there are rectangular rooms in Hawkins which typically have the strongest tiles to loop and have multiple variations. We'll talk about that later when we cover looping. The first of the three rectangular rooms has the control room on top and two smaller squared-shaped rooms on either side. The mid part of the map starts on the bottom section of the first rectangular room, and on either side of it we have the two other rectangular rooms that spawn in Hawkins. This covers mid and bottom mid. As we continue our way down, we get to the bottom part of the map, which also has the stairs that lead to the second floor. And in case it's more intuitive for you, here are the clock callouts for Hawkins. You can pause the video if you'd like to see how all the rooms are divided and labeled. I'll refer to both layouts throughout the video. Now let's talk about how to find gens. Let's start with the easy ones. There will always be a gen in the portal room or 12 using clock callouts. It always spawns in the same spot. One thing to know about this gen is that if you're working on the gen, killers like Ghostface and Myers can stalk you from below. However, you can actually reveal Ghostface by keeping your camera angle on the right spot. Against Myers, nothing you can do, so you might as well just stick to the gen. I like getting this gen out of the way early on if possible because it's so far from the rest of the map that I can take chase here after and make the killer waste a little time even if I end up dying. But that's just my opinion. There's another gen that always spawns upstairs in what I call 11's prison or 11's room. This is in reference to Stranger Things. This is the room where 11 was kept hostage in the TV show. This gen is usually unsafe because upstairs has no real areas to loop. So if you decide to work on this gen, I wouldn't suggest you work on it while injured if you can avoid it. We'll talk a bit more about upstairs when we talk about looping. Now for the rest of the gens, an easy way to spot if there's a gen inside any of the rooms is by looking at the double doors in those rooms. If the double doors make a noise and seem like they're trying to open but they're stuck, that means there's an unrepaired gen inside that room. Once the gen is repaired, the doors will open. So if you're struggling to find gens, look for double doors that look like they're stuck trying to open. The rest of the gens can spawn in the hallways, which are easier to spot, so we won't cover those in this video. Now let's talk about how to find the exit gates. Also like Leary's, there are exit signs in Hawkins that you can look for to find the exits. They have red letters and can be spotted from a distance down either of the long hallways. Using the map layout, you can get an idea of where the exit gates can spawn. One gate will always spawn on either side of the map. The location of the gates on each side varies, but they can spawn in top left or right, mid left or right, and bottom left or right. Using clock callouts, the exits would spawn by 9 or 3, or the hallway between 1 and 2, 4 and 5, 7 and 8, or 10 and 11. Now let's cover the strongest loops in the map. We'll start at the top of the map in the portal room or 12 using clock callouts. If you're working on this gen, you can spot the killer coming up the stairs from far away and you can drop into the control room easily. Once you drop, if you want, you can go to the pallet that always spawns here, but it's not very safe. Ideally, you'd want to play this as a filler pallet, and not stay here if you can avoid it. You play it like the filler pallets in Leary's where you drop it and go around the outside of the room. Keep your check spots as usual to see if the killer commits, or play to try to get the stun. Now if you want to keep the chase in the control room and portal room, you can try vaulting the window in front of one of the consoles back and forth. Just be careful because the entity will block that window if you vault it 3 times during a chase. You'll want to make the vaults count, meaning making sure the killer is committing to either side to waste as much time as possible. I want to point out a very important thing here. You may or may not be aware of this, but you can actually fast vault this window coming from either side of the console. It's all about camera angles. From the right hand side, use your camera to adjust your direction but always be looking forward, and don't spam spacebar or whatever key or button you use for vaulting if you're using a controller. You'll have to time it right and press it once right when you get the vault prompt. If you haven't done this before, you may not be able to get the fast vault right away, but just get some practice and you'll master this. From the left hand side, you have a similar approach, but you don't necessarily need to keep looking forward at all times. I actually have a higher fast vault success rate aligning my vault at a slight camera angle, like I'm showing you right now. The timing to hit the vault command follows the same principle as from the right hand side. Don't spam it, time it, and hit it just once. If you're able, see if you can get into a custom game and practice it. You'll get it in no time. This would only help you here, but you can also use this in other tight fast vault locations. It's actually really useful to practice. Now let's cover top mid and mid, 10 and 8, and 2 and 4, which are all the rectangular shaped rooms. Similar to Leary's, the tiles that spawn here vary and are the strongest in my opinion. By the way, if you haven't already and are interested, you can check out the video I made on how to play Leary's by clicking on the card on the top right corner of your screen. Now let's look at the variations for these rectangular rooms. Let's start with the God Pallet Tile. The God Pallet spawns on the top side of the tile. Just as a side note, I'll refer to top side or bottom side of the tile itself, since these tiles can spawn in either of the rectangular rooms. One thing to keep in mind is that if you drop the God Pallet coming from the top side of the room, depending on where it spawns, there are stairs right next to it that the killer can use to get to the other side without having to break the pallet. So don't just drop it and keep running, make sure the killer doesn't use the stairs, otherwise they'll catch up with you really fast. Also, the killer may wait and not even drop to the other side. They could wait to see what you do, so be mindful. In my opinion, if you're healthy and not on death hook, I wouldn't drop the pallet. This way, if the pallet is still up and there's a need to use it later by you or another teammate coming from the bottom part of the tile, it will be guaranteed value because the stairs are only accessible from the top side of the room. The bottom portion of this tile spawns an unsafe pallet. If you have to run this, go wide. Go around the wide side to try to waste a little bit more time. Let's move on to the next tiles that can spawn here. There are two variations where we get a single chamber, one in the middle of the tile and one at the bottom portion of the tile. Let's start with the single chamber in the middle. This tile has a potential God pallet if you run it correctly. Try to run it going up the stairs on the bottom part of the tile, then going down the stairs on the top side of the tile, and making a right at the bottom of the stairs after dropping the pallet. The killer has to break it or go around the standing enclosures, letting you go towards the bottom part of the tile and either allowing you to go back up and down the stairs and vault in the pallet if you have enough distance, or maybe going to the bottom part of the tile to play the other pallet that spawns here. That bottom pallet isn't great, but at least has one side that lets you see the killer. Against an M1 killer or a basic attack killer, it's okay, but against a range killer, not so much. You can run this the opposite way as well. You come from the bottom side of the tile to the stairs on the top side of the tile, taking the stairs from the pallet side, dropping the pallet, then going up the stairs. If you play the pallet any other way, it reduces its strength. The other thing you can do here is if you go up the stairs on the top side of the tile, you have a vault you can take. Useful if you have balanced landing. Also, you could fake the vault to bait the killer into double backing. You'll hear me say this a lot in these type of elevated platform vaults because there's a few variations around the map. Anyways, if you fake it and the killer hesitates, you may be able to go down the stairs on the bottom side of the tile and play the pallet there, or just hold the vault until you see the killer committing. You can also vault it from the other side, and same approach, you can either fake it or full send it. I don't suggest you go down the chamber since the killer can follow behind you and catch up pretty fast. If you can, try to run around the chamber door and see if the killer either whiffs or even falls into it. Then make a run for the vault. It doesn't always work, but it's worth a shot if you're in a dire situation. One last thing before we move on is that if you're inside the chamber, the killer can't hit you from the ground. Just something kind of funny about this. Not really all that useful. Now let's cover the single chamber at the bottom. This has an elevated platform with two locations to drop, one in the middle and one at the bottom. As usual, faking the vault on the middle vault may help, then moving on to the second vault at the bottom side, since there is only one set of stairs on the top side of the tile. I think the best strategy is to go upstairs and play the vaults, since at the bottom you have two pallets, one at the top side of the tile and one at the bottom side, but they're both not great. I'd say the one at the bottom is the best of the two since you have at least some visibility, but on the one on the top, the control panels won't let you see what the killer's pathing is since they're fairly tall. So do the best you can with the resources you have. There's a third structure with chambers, and I call this one the double chamber tile. I call this double chamber because there are two chambers at either end of the tile. One has the door on top closed and the other one is open. This tile has stairs on either side and the elevated platform runs in the middle across the entire room. On the platform itself, you have a vault on either end, so same as the previous one, if you'd like, you could fake vaulting and see if the killer commits. If you full send it, you can take a fast vault relatively easily on the side that has the chamber door closed. To do this, you'll need to stand right on the door handle to have enough distance for the fast vault. It's important to take fast vaults because with a medium vault, you have what I call a lingering hitbox and you may end up getting hit even if on your camera it looks like you're already dropping. You can also fast vault by the other chamber with the door open, but you'll need to backtrack a little bit. The pallets that spawn in this tile aren't the safest, so just play them the best you can. Be patient and mind game if you can to waste a bit of time. One thing to look out for here is if the killer is on the platform and you're going up or down the stairs, the killer has the option to drop and they can even jump over the stair railings, so keep an eye on them so you're not caught off guard. Survivors can also jump over the railings, but get staggered and usually end up at the bottom of the stairs. Let me show you. Now, this isn't all that helpful in chase to be honest, but if it's a last attempt to try to waste the killer's time, or if you have balance, it may help. Same as with the killer, camera angle is key for survivors and also the place where you drop. Keep your camera angled up or straight. The way I do it is I hug the opposite platform railing, then cross the platform and drop. You do need to drop where there is the largest height difference between the platform and the railings. Here and here. Otherwise, you'll hit the railing and end up on the floor instead of the stairs. And the stagger will be pretty bad. Now let's cover what I call the barrel storage room. Here you have a slightly elevated platform in the middle and two pallets at each end. Dropping either of these two pallets and playing into the middle of the tile is very strong. One thing to keep in mind is the killer can cut through the tile by going up the stairs and onto the platform. There are openings that allow a drop on either side. Survivors do get staggered by the drop, but if you drop on the same side of the stairs, you can use the barrel on the floor to cancel the stagger and gain a bit of distance. One thing to keep in mind is don't drop until you see the killer go up the stairs, so you'll need to be looking behind you to see what the killer does. I'd recommend you practice this. One tip is, as soon as you go past the X on the platform, you can go ahead and drop, always looking towards the direction of the pallet for maximum stagger cancellation. And the last tile variation is what I call the crate tile. Here you get a normal structure with a pallet, so not really much to talk about here, just keep your check spots and drop the pallet as needed. Now let's talk about the small square rooms. I won't spend too much time talking about these, but I'll quickly show you the variations. First, let's cover the single chamber small room. If you go up the platform in this room, you can take a fast vault by hugging the railing as I'm showing you right now. As with the other elevated platform vaults, you can fake it to try to waste some of the killer's time. You can medium vault it if the killer commits. You also have a pallet at the bottom, but it's not the safest. So just play it as best as you can, and I don't really have much else to say about this tile. It's not all that safe. There's also the squared elevated platform. Here you can run up the stairs and there is a vault right across the top of the stairs. If you want to waste some of the killer's time, you can run around this a few times. Now if you decide to vault it, it really becomes a 50-50, whether you vault it and trick the killer into committing upstairs or vault it and the killer double backing and getting a hit on you. So play this as best as you can. There's also a pallet at the bottom of the stairs. If you're healthy, don't drop the pallet right away. I'd suggest you go up the stairs to try to waste a bit of time, then drop the pallet if you're out of options. There's another variation that I call the double vault platform. Here you can vault either side and it's also a 50-50 since the killer can double back. I'll say this though, I play this similar to the vaults on the tractor in Colwyn. I fake and vault in one side, but then run across and vault the other side. Then go up the stairs again, but this time actually commit to the vault. This may help waste a bit of the killer's time. As usual, in my opinion, Don't drop the pallet at the bottom until you absolutely have to. The other variations in the small rooms don't have elevated platforms and have shelves and pallet or crates and pallet tiles. All of them are relatively unsafe. Once you drop the pallet in these structures, they become 50-50s and you'll have to panic vault back and forth if you don't want to get hit. In my opinion, it's best to be patient and try to get the stun, because if you drop it without stunning the killer, the tile becomes even weaker than it already is, and you will most likely get hit anyway if you start panic vaulting. So at least if you wait to try to get the stun, you'll have a higher chance of making it somewhere else to continue the chase. The same goes with similar structures in all the small room variations when it comes to the use of pallets. The next thing I'll discuss here briefly is the filler pallets that spawn on the hallways. By themselves, the pallets aren't great, but if you pre-drop and continue running, then they can buy you a little bit of time. Just keep your check spots if you have doorways or openings in the rooms close to the filler pallets. And the last thing I'll cover is upstairs. The first thing I'll say is try not to take chases up here because the tiles are very unsafe. But something to note is that the rooms upstairs are consistent and there's one way to run them, or that I like to run them, that may actually help you. First thing to note is that if you go upstairs and see bullet holes on the wall at the top of the stairs, it's guaranteed that you have a window right as you turn the corner. If you happen to have a light, you could take it and get a speed boost. And even if you don't have light, the killer may not expect it if you take a medium vault, and you may actually waste a little bit of the killer's time because you'll have a vault right across from the room that you could also take. Now, if you come upstairs on the other side, which you can recognize by not seeing the bullet holes on the wall at the top of the stairs, you have a room on the left-hand side of the hallway that has a cage in the middle. You could go inside that room and run it this way, not this way, so you can line up a fast vault, then continue your run into the other vault right in front of you and gain a tiny bit of distance since you're cutting through the hallway a little bit. Now that's about the best things you can do up here, because the rest of the tiles are really bad. If you have other ways you run tiles in Hawkins or other tips and tricks, please share them in the comment section below. Thanks to my good friend Damari for helping me record part of this video. I hope this was useful, and if you'd like to be notified when I upload my next video, you can subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to watch other videos with tips or gameplay, you can click on the thumbnails on the left hand side of your screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.